Wow.
This morning, we've been following the continued fallout from Donald Trump's primetime interview on Fox News this week, in which he doubled down on his handling of nuclear secrets after leaving the White House. Now, a number of well-known conservatives are wondering, what was he thinking? Some examples: conservative radio host and blogger Eric Erickson tweeted, quote, "Guys, Trump admitted on TV tonight he withheld documents from the grand jury. Game over legally. What an idiot." Talk show host Ed Morrissey tweeted, the first rule of Federal Indictment Club is you don't talk about your case. And the second rule of Federal Indictment Club is really don't do this. Did Trump just admit to obstruction on national television? And frequent legal commentator for Fox News, Jonathan Turley, tweeted, Bret Baier conducted an extraordinary interview with Donald Trump, who discussed the criminal allegations in detail. Statements of this kind are generally admissible at trial. And then there's former New Jersey governor and current Republican presidential candidate Chris Christie, who said this.
The problem for Donald Trump in all of this is his own conduct. He's his own worst enemy. None of this would have happened to him or to the country if he had just returned the documents. It appears to me last night, as a former prosecutor, that he admitted obstruction of justice on the air last night to Bret Baier. I can tell you this, his lawyers this morning are jumping out of whatever window they're near.
Add to that what Andy McCarthy, a contributing editor at National Review and Fox News legal contributor, had this to say on Hugh Hewitt's show last week, followed by reaction from former Attorney General under Trump, Bill Barr.
In terms of the president's defense that he declassified the documents, I'm not saying it has merit, but how does he get that into the record without appearing as a witness?
There would have to be. This is why I don't think he has a defense. First of all, I think if you do that under the Presidential Records Act, there should be a document supporting it. Otherwise, he's got to have a witness that shows that he did it. I don't think he has that. And I also think it's irrelevant because it's not a defense to these charges.
But assuming he thinks it's a relevant argument and they want to make the argument to the jury, how do they even get the assertion that he declassified him in his mind into the record without him going on the stand? Go ahead, we can talk through the music.
Yeah, I don't see how he could do that. He's got to, if it's the operation of his mind, he's got to testify to it.
He's not a victim here. He was totally wrong that he had the right to have those documents. Those documents are among the most sensitive secrets that the country has. They have to be in the custody of the archivist. He had no right to maintain them and retain them. And he kept them in a way at Mar-a-Lago that anyone who really cares about national security, their stomach would churn at it. Here, I think the government acted responsibly. They gave them every opportunity to return those documents. They acted with restraint. They were very deferential to him, and they were very patient. They talked to him for almost a year to try to get those documents, and he jerked them around. They finally went to a subpoena, and what did he do? According to the government, he lied and obstructed that subpoena. And then they did a search, and they found a lot more documents. And they're not even, I don't think they're even sure now whether they have everything.
Yeah, and more from Barr, Neil Katyal, who wrote this recently for Free Press. For the sake of our country, our party, and a basic respect for the truth, it is time that Republicans come to grips with the hard truths about President Trump's conduct and its implication. Chief among them, Trump's indictment is not the result of unfair government prosecution. This is a situation entirely of his own making. The effort to present Trump as a victim in the Mar-a-Lago document affair is cynical political propaganda. It certainly seems that so many people that have spent the last 8 years and their reputations defending Donald Trump are running for the exits.
That's exactly right, Joe. And I'm a little afraid to say this because I think lightning might smite me down, but I agree with Bill Barr. He's got it exactly right here. I mean, Donald Trump has acted with the most gross disregard of our national security imaginable. And this isn't just Bill Barr's view, it's the view of almost everyone in Trump's former cabinet, whether it's his former chiefs of staff, Mick Mulvaney and John Kelly, whether it's its defense secretary, Mark Esper, whether it's his vice president, Mike Pence. They've all come out and said exactly this. And to me, the surprising thing for someone like Barr is, where were you for the last several years? I mean, this is not the Trump mishandling of these documents is not different than the way he handled other laws, how he treated our Constitution, and so on. So it's the same. It's part of the same pattern. But this time, as Bill Barr says, he's toast. This evidence looks overwhelming. And the person who agrees with it is a guy named Donald Trump in that Fox News interview this week.
Yeah, Neil, speaking about the Fox interview, maybe you can clear something up for us. Is what he said, what Donald Trump said under questioning from Bret Baier, is that admissible at a trial? Can you use those transcripts and use his own words against him in a trial?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. There is no kind of Fox News interview exception to the federal rules of evidence. So Trump's comments will be admissible. It wasn't as if they were given in an unmirandized way by law enforcement when he wasn't warned that anything he said could be used against him. He's appearing on his own voluntarily. There's no evidence of coercion or anything like that to appear on Fox News. I mean, you might have to coerce me to be on that, but not Donald Trump. And so I think he's got no leg to stand on. This is going to be admitted against him.
So, Neil, let's turn you to the other major legal/political headline of the last day or so, and that's the plea agreement struck by Hunter Biden and the Department of Justice. We've heard sort of a wide range of reactions from the legal community as to the appropriateness of the charges. Obviously, Republicans are claiming favoritism here. Democrats dispute that. Let's just get your take. What did you make of that plea agreement? Did it seem fair to you?
I did. So, look, the prosecutor here was not AOC. It was not Merrick Garland. The prosecutor's name was the guy named David Weiss. Weiss was appointed by Donald Trump. He's well respected. He was the first assistant U.S. attorney in Delaware for many years, the former career top prosecutor, before getting a political appointment from Donald Trump to be the chief prosecuting officer for Delaware. And in response to questions from Jim Jordan last month, Weiss clarified in a letter to Congress that he, not Merrick Garland, had the ultimate authority over the prosecution of Hunter Biden. So Weiss negotiated this deal. If Republicans are upset with the deal, the complaint is with that prosecutor. It's not with Biden. It's not with Garland or anything else. And of course, this agreement does have to be signed off on by a federal judge. I don't think there's any doubt the judge will sign off on it, because if anyone really has to complain here, I'd say it's actually Hunter Biden, because first-time offenders like this almost never get prosecuted. They certainly don't get jail time. And so, if anything, this sentence is actually harsh, not lenient.